Imagine a world where you can build anything. A world where you can let your imagination take the lead. Where if you can think of it, you can create it. A world where the sky is literally the limit. In case it isn't obvious, the world I'm talking about is Minecraft. Minecraft lets you build anything, but it takes time and effort. And who's got any of that to spare? Some basic commands will help you greatly, but there are limits to what the basics can do, and today I want to move past the basics. If you read the title, you know that I'm making a fill tool today. But what do I mean by that? I'm talking about a way for you to fill in entire spaces that consist of one block with just one click, kind of like a fill tool in most painting programs. And if that doesn't make sense to you, just wait. It'll all be clear once I start building it. And before I go any further, I'm just going to get this out of the way. If you enjoy this, maybe consider subscribing. That's all. Alright, so strangely enough, this is actually something that I thought of making a long time ago, back when I was planning my YouTube channel. So I've actually put a fair amount of thought into how I'm going to make this work. And I think the gist of it is going to be that you place down an armor stand, and it will attempt to summon armor stands next to it in every direction if the block next to it matches the block that we're trying to replace. Then, once we have all the armor stands in place, or while they're still summoning, we can just fill in the area around each of them with the new block that we want to have. Alright, I have something here. The simple explanation is it does exactly what I said. It checks every block around it. Right now I have it just set to check if it's packed ice, because over there's an iceberg that I want to test it out on. And then at each of them, it's not that one. At each of them, it sets it to glass. Testing in 3, 2, 1. Ooh, that's some lag. But still it seems promising. This is gonna crash, isn't it? Alright, well, while that was loading, I had a chance to think about what went wrong, and I think the answer is that I didn't sort of check for duplicate armor stands. So what happened is, when I placed down the armor stand, right, say I placed it right here, it would summon one like here, here, and here, but then each one of those would summon one here as well, so then we would have like 2 here, and 2 up here, and 1 still here, and then like they would just keep on summoning more and more at every step of the way, until we probably had like thousands of entities trying to be summoned all at once, which is not super good for your computer. Alright, I got a little something. All it really does now is checks if there's already an armor stand there. I had to change up the command itself a little bit to actually do this, but it doesn't really matter. It's all pretty much the same thing. So test number 2, here's hoping for no crash this time. And it seems to work, except for the fact that it only went in 2 directions. So let's give it another shot. Alright, test number 2, or I guess number 3 now, on a new iceberg. And yeah, I was just missing a couple of command blocks. But that's pretty nice. Glad with the way that's working. I'd say the 2 biggest problems are A, the armor stand is not invisible, but that's easy to fix. And B, as I said earlier, right now it is specifically targeting packed ice to change into glass, which is helpful if you're looking to turn an iceberg into glass like I was, but less helpful if you're trying to do anything actually useful. So the way that I was kind of hoping to do this was I would say I was trying to do the same thing as before, where I try to fill in packed ice with glass. What I kind of thought I could have would be like, it fills in the block above it with the block below it, right? So if I were to, say, have a situation like this, and to place it right here, it would fill in this packed ice and, all of this packed ice and everything around it with glass. So it would be doing exactly what we had before. But before we go any further with that idea, let's start with the easy one, which is just making all of these invisible. Alright, well with that out of the way, let's see if it's actually invisible. It is, and that looks vastly better because we don't have armor stands flying around. Alright, now back to the actually difficult part of this. So going back to my incredibly detailed scientific model here, I think the way that I want this to go is when you first place down the armor stand, it will clone the bottom block somewhere else, like a set determined coordinate, and the top block somewhere, right? And then instead of checking if the top one is packed ice and then setting it to be glass, it will check if it's whatever this block is, and if it is, then set it to the block below it, like that. In theory, quite simple, but then again I always say that, and quite frequently it is not simple. Stage 1, I want to make sure that the sort of checking is working, and if it is, then I can move on to the filling. Those are very vague terms, but I'd imagine you know what I mean. Right, here goes. Well, that is a thing. It turns out that I had forgotten that you can't actually place armor stands in 1 block tall gaps, but if we do that, that's an interesting thing that's happening there. Alright, that whole time that I was sitting there and placing it down and being like, why isn't it here? Well, let me tell you why it wasn't there. It's because I, first of all, left this repeating command block on needs redstone, so it wasn't actually running. And second of all, the armor stand was invisible, so I could not see it for that reason. But now that those issues are fixed, if we place that there... Okay. It occurred to me just now that because I can't place it right under this block, what's happening is I place it down, it tries to fill the area around itself with armor stands, but doesn't find any diorite directly next to it, so it doesn't do anything. No biggie, I'm just going to make it so that it automatically, no matter what, summons an armor stand above it to check. Alright. Test number, 10 at this point. Sometimes this game is just so disappointing.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
Oh no. Well, I placed an armor stand on the ground right next to the air, and guess what? My game crashed again. Which is my favorite thing, when I'm working and I screw something up and ta-da! I gotta reopen Minecraft. The good news is it seems to be kind of working. I had a couple of tests where it didn't work. I still don't know why those tests existed, but when I tried it in some other situations, it did work. So I guess I'm gonna kind of try it again in the situation that it didn't work in last time, and hope that it's somehow working this time. See, like there? That seems right. Right enough. Here, if we test it out. No. No. Okay, I saved and quit. I don't think that's gonna help me. Turns out the biggest mistake I could make was trying to save and quit, because that just saved all the lag. But if I had just quit, it would just revert to the most recent version, which would have been a version before any lag existed. But instead, this is completely broken, and I cannot reopen my world, and I gotta remake the whole thing. It's times like these that I'm reminded of the wise words of Bennett Foddy. I was never good enough to beat getting over it, but the whole idea that starting over is harder than beginning in the first place is never more true than right now. I really didn't mind building this the first time, but now that I just have to redo it, it's quite the chore, honestly. But anyway, I finally set this up again, and my testing seems to suggest that it's working pretty well. So now we can move on to the next stage. So basically what I have here is a scoreboard objective, and this command here stores the number of entities into this scoreboard objective, and then this command simply checks if there's more than 500 using that scoreboard, and if there are, then it kills them all. So, with a backup made just to be safe, let's test if that helps at all with the lag. It does, and honestly, if anything, wait, actually, how far does this go? I would say, if anything, that's, like, not enough. Like, we can let it go even further. I think maybe if we say, I don't know, 2,000? So now if we go a little ways away and just plonk it down. You see, so even at that point, the lag was not very bad at all. Gosh, I don't know how high I want to go with this. I'm just going to keep experimenting. And once the lag starts getting, like, legitimately bad, I will stop. Okay, I set it to 10,000, and that seems good. It was getting a little bit laggy by the end, so I'm going to just tone it down just a little bit. But if you, for some reason, need to fill in something bigger than this, like, it shouldn't be too much trouble just to put in a couple extra armor stands. Way back when, before we ran into all these lag problems, you'll remember I was talking about making it so that it will clone from the block from underneath onto the block above it. And we were going to do that by cloning these two blocks elsewhere. Well, for a long time now, I've been working on making it so that it will be replacing the block above. And now I just need to make it so that it's setting with the block below. And I think that's honestly as simple as just, instead of setting the block to glass, cloning the block from 0, 0, 0 onto the armor stand. Or rather, the area effect clouds, I guess they are now, because those are supposed to be more lag friendly. But, just as a test, if we place this onto the ground now, it will hopefully fill with grass instead of glass. That seems quite promising. Yeah, I would say slow. So, now that I've done that, I kind of want to just go through some practical uses of this, because when I've sort of tried making stuff like this in the past, it's been really fun just to play with. So the first thing is we have this nice little lake here, and say you want to drain this out. So if I just break that, and then place that there, boom, lake gone, just like that. So the next use that I'm going to talk about is actually the thing that inspired me to make this in the first place. See, I was watching a Mumbo Jumbo video quite some time back now, and he had an irregular structure, sort of like this one. It was a little bit, more complex than this, but it was, something along these lines. And he had it hollow, just like I have here, and he was saying that he needed to fill it in, but he didn't know any easy way to fill it in without, like, kind of cutting across the corners, because the default fill command creates, like, a cube, and you can't fill in an irregular structure very easily with that. But with this fill tool, it's actually quite trivial. You see, it's about to get real dark, but if I just put down this armor stand here, and then fly on out, we can see now it's completely solid on the inside, and we have lost none of the exterior detail. So just as a note, if you're wondering how you might fill something beneath you, because, it's obviously sort of set up to set the block above it, well, I think it's actually pretty simple. You could just do something like this, and then this, and now the block above it is grass, and the one below it is stone. And just like that, it'll fill in a lot. So this is something I want to kind of try, is filling in the end island here. And I suspect that it's going to be too big to get in one go, but it seems worth it to me, honestly, just to do it anyway. Because I feel like it would be really cool to have, like, the end made out of glass or whatever. So let's try it. think it's safe to say that this looks pretty incredible, and I am incredibly pleased with the result of that. Very glad I have Optifine, because something tells me that without it, it would look kind of nasty. Now all that's left to do is these towers, which honestly I think will be, if anything, even faster, because they just load a lot faster. That kind of concludes this little trip into the end. So, with this tool, you can turn your fight with the dragon from a hellish monstrosity into a Christmas party. Here's another thing that's probably pretty helpful. Want to, for some reason, make just this one wall of this village into granite instead of sandstone? Well, too bad, because they're connected on the inside. But, you know. the idea is there. I don't know. Now that I'm actually messing around with this a bit, I can't think of too many scenarios where it would be useful, but for some reason /fill replace wouldn't be. But, you know, honestly, it's fun, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day. As always, let me know if you enjoyed this video by liking or subscribing, and I will see you in the next one.